Entertainment Pictures, LA. You're going to be watching a slideshow for the video movie pitch script entitled The Magic Headband, the world's newest.
Yes, my name is Hodges. I'm company CEO with Entertainment Pictures, LA. In association with HH Records, HH Music Company, a member of Broadcast Music Incorporated since 1990. What you're watching right now is our video movie pitch script entitled The Magic Headband, the world's newest superhero. And what's so awesome about this is that you know how fast that all the fans will run to the worldwide theaters to watch, like the Green Lantern that they just released from Warner Bros., the Captain America series, and of course the Spider-Man sequels, one after another from Sony Pictures Entertainment. And so how much quicker do you think that all the fans worldwide will be standing in line to watch the world's newest superhero, the Magic Headband superhero, that has never been seen before, and they don't even have a clue what powers he is capable of and has been given? Okay, so I'm giving you a little rundown clue here of what's happened. This is awesome, and it stands to make over $100 million the first weekend of release, or double, triple that, as you know, because of what happens with the Green Lantern, Spider-Man, and all these sequels. So it's a win-win situation. There's no way to lose. We're sending this out to all major motion picture corporations for their consideration, along with yours right now that we're sending it to, along with famous actors and actresses to play the main characters of James, that is the main character that is the Magic Headband in the movie, and his co-partner, which her name is Shanna, that is the other main character in the film. And so we're sending out to all these corporations and companies and actors and actresses. So I hope you'll bear with us. You're going to really, by the time we finish this script and screenplay, and of course this is the Magic Headband, world's newest superhero, and it's a script and screenplay for a motion picture script and screenplay, and also a TV series. But right now we're just presenting the motion picture script and screenplay, and it's all copyrighted and written by myself, Hodges, of Entertainment Pictures, LA. So that's what this is here. Now we're going to move along. I have to. I'm going to read some parts and then just go over some parts with you from the first, middle, and the last of the shortened version of the script and screenplay, because of for time's sakes purposes and everything. And so okay, this next shot here is from the collector's edition of the 40th year anniversary from Woodstock. Because see, our film is centered around the Woodstock film, the 1969 Woodstock film that is owned by and administered, the copyrights by Warner Brothers Pictures. I have spoke to Warner Brothers Pictures licensing department, and I have secured a 2-minute window to use 2 minutes of actual footage from the movie Woodstock. This should give us plentiful footage to set the stage and set the screen stage for our Magic Headband movie, because it will be shot, over 90% of it will be shot in an open field there, and we can use any huge open field to set the stage for this. All we're going to need is the two main actors, actor and actress, and for the two main parts, and also a handful of actors and actresses, extras, dressed up in hippie garb from that era back in '69, from the Woodstock era back then. The reason for this picture here, this is actual notes that they put in their 40th year DVD and Blu-ray kit, showing that from back then there was actual old crispy wood, paper because it's from '69, the actual copies of it actually, from the people that wrote notes to each other, because it was over 500,000 people there, as you know. And so in our script and screenplay written by myself, the two main actors, I'm going to take you through this shortened version, you'll see, but they find an actual note from the from someone that had left an actual note from this old caliber of paper for them under a big boulder. And I'm going to read an excerpt from it here. And this is what the note said, and it was from old paper like this. It says, this movie is about a magic headband that was found at the Woodstock site there in Bethel, New York, in a field there on the site of the famous 1969 Woodstock 3-day world famous Peace and Love rock concert, buried in the ground with a note and a headband. And the note stated, the hippie's headband, and the note stated, whomever puts on this headband will be brought back to this time of peace and love. And so that's why the note here is to set the stage for that. Now the movie starts off with James, the main character James, and he's James is with two of his childhood friends he grew up with, and they were saying, James says, you know what, wouldn't that be awesome if there's some way, they were talking about Woodstock, reminiscing their childhood youth from back in the '69, and they said, wouldn't it be awesome if there's some way that, you know, the James character said, wouldn't it be cool if there's some way we could go back in time, and I would have loved to have been at that actual Woodstock rock concert there at Bethel, New York, because it was such a pinnacle time and place at that time, period, because the world's greatest rock bands were all gathered there at that 3-day site rock concert, and you know, it was such a awesome movement going on with peace and love and everything. So and then his two friends says, what have you been smoking, man? There's no way you can go back to that time period. And then the other friend says, you and your best friend Gordon, which was in the script and screenplay here, I remember y'all were on your way and you were going to hitchhike from your mother's house in San Antonio, Texas back then. Y'all were going to hitchhike, but your mother stopped you back then, and y'all were going to hitchhike to New York from San Antonio, Texas to the rock concert there at the Woodstock. And he said, I know. He said, so that, you know what, guys? You know what I think I'm going to do? On my vacation in August, this will be the 40th year anniversary of the actual Woodstock concert. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to use my vacation in August. I'm going to fly to New York, and I'm going to get a rental car. I'm going to go up there and at least go to that site. And they said, what are you going to see? What's that? You know, probably nothing, but I said, at least I can say, hey, I was at that Woodstock concert on the very site of that famous, you know, concert there. And so so James, the next scene is James is flying out, and he lands in the JFK airport in New York. So he's got his luggage and he's carrying them out, and he's flagging down a taxi, and so a taxi pulls up. He gets in, James gets in, puts his luggage, and they're driving. He says, take me to the Hertz Rent-A-Car. And he said, wherever it's at. And he said, you're in luck, buddy. And he says, the taxi driver. I said, oh, really? And he said, where's it at? Oh, it's just on the side here of the airport. It's right here. He said, okay, take me over there. He said, okay, I will, thanks. So, and there's the cameraman is following James everywhere he goes. He's in the taxi cab with James and the taxi cab driver, so he's shooting the footage there. And so the taxi cab driver lets him out there at Hertz. He goes up and he gets, it shows him going in the building to get rent a car. Then the next shot is James is coming out, and he has his lease papers there, and he has the keys to the car. So he goes there, unlocks the car, and he throws in his lease agreement on the passenger seat, jumps in the car, starts the car, and then the cameraman's in back filming, and as James drives off, and he's on his way. So then from then on, he's driving in New York there, upstate New York or somewhere there, and he's on his way to Bethel, New York, which is out of the New York City area there. So he's on his way. And then as James is driving, he's thinking about these things, and then it shows the sign, 15 miles, 10 miles, and then when he gets to 5 miles from Bethel, New York, where the Woodstock concert was held on Yozgar's farm there, he sees this young girl hitchhiking, you know. It's a real good-looking young girl with blonde hair, and so he sees her and he says, well, she looks harmless. So he pulls over, and James is, like I said, he's reminiscing. He's on like a mission to go reminiscing about his youth and stuff, and he's in his early 50s, you know. And so this young girl's like 18, 21 maybe and stuff. So anyway, she's hitchhiking, so he pulls over, she gets in the car, and so they start driving off, and the cameraman's filming the conversation between James and the hitchhiker. So James says, the young hitchhiker says, where are you going? And he says, oh, I'm on my way to Bethel, New York. Do you know? He said, I think it's only 5 more miles up here. And she says, yeah, that's where I live. And she said, why would you want to come here? There's nothing here. It's this bunch of wood and sticks up here. There's nothing here. He said, well, he says, I'm on a quest, reminiscing a quest from my childhood. I want to go to the actual fields there from the Woodstock fields. And she says, why? There's nothing there. And he said, well, I just like to say that I was there. And she said, well, anyway, by the way, what's your name? And he said, my name's James. And he said, what's yours? And she said, my name's Shanna. So they shake hands, and she said, let me ask you, James, I'm not doing nothing this weekend. He said, can I go with you? And he said, sure, I'd like to have the company, you know. So anyway, they're driving, and then it's not long as they're driving, they make a big curve, and she says, James, slow down. Now, right when you make this curve, pull over to the side off the road. And he says, okay. So he pulls off, and there's a big field, open field there, and with a fence along the way. It seems like it stretches forever. And she says, see this fence right here? And he says, yes. And she says, this is right here is the actual spot. Back in 1969, my mother told me that this is the actual spot where the crowds got so huge with over 500,000 people, and they didn't have the money to pay, and everybody wanted to go in the concert so bad, they tore the fence down right here. Said, this would be a good place for us to go ahead and we'll climb the fence here. Do you want to do that? And he said, yeah, I'm game, let's go. So anyway, they pull the car over, lock it up, and they get out. Then the cameraman follow them with the camera as James and Shanna, and James helps Shanna over the fence, and then he climbs over. And so the cameraman's following through the field. And then Shanna says, James, see this big incline here where the hill is up in here, a large hill? He said, yes. He said, right over that hillside there is down, there's a valley below, and that's where the actual concert stage was set up and built there, where all those famous rock concert stars play. He said, I've got to see this. And he said, I can't believe I'm here. I'm excited. So then James and Shannon shows them, and they go up to the top, and as they make the top of the hill, she said, it's at the bottom here. So then they go down. James is looking around. He's all excited. Of course, Shannon could care less because he said, all I'm doing is in an open field. But anyways, she just likes his company, so she's there with him. So he's just like inspecting it like this. It's like, right here's where the stage was built, right? I think I could see where some of the studs were still left from the stage. So yeah, that's exactly where, this is awesome. He's all excited, you know, reminiscing. And then Shannon says, well, James, you take your time. And she says, but I'm getting tired. So she goes over, and she's looking around for somewhere to sit, squat down, just to relax. So she sees a big boulder, rock boulder on the side here. So she starts to sit down. As soon as she starts to sit down on that boulder, for some weird reason, the boulder rolls over. Shanna falls down. And she's not hurt, but she just falls down. And then so she picks herself up and she looks back. And when she does, under that boulder, in the ground, just barely sticking up like this, it's like a plastic bag. And there's with some old paper there. It's old and crispy looking. Because it's, you know, back from 1969. And so she said, what is that? So she said, James, come here. Look, you got to see under this boulder. So James runs over. He runs over there real quick. what? What'd you find? What's this? She said, yeah, the boulder rolled over, and when I did, she said, when I sit down, it rolled over, and look, there's something sticking up out of the ground. He says, oh, what? He said, who could have put this here? So he starts digging, but carefully digging, because it's so old, he didn't want to destroy nothing. So he barely does it real easy, and he digs it up, and then he pulls the plastic bag open, and he carefully opens it up, and he pulls it out, and there's an old crispy brown paper looking thing with a note on there, handwritten note. And then he says, and something else is in here, and so he pulls it out, and it's a hippie's headband with a big peace sign in the middle and peace and love, the words written on both sides of the peace sign. And so he said, oh, this is awesome. Man, this is awesome. He said, somebody from that 1969 Woodstock concert must have put this here under this heavy boulder and left it for somebody to find in the future, I guess. He said, but my God, he said, how lucky can we be to be the ones to find this here and everything. He said, because it must have been here since 1969. And he said, and she said, well, open up, read that note to me. So he says, okay. He said, and so he pulls it out and he starts reading it, and he says, and the note states, whomever puts on this magic headband will be transported back to this time of peace and love and be given superpowers to help all of mankind from the foes of evilness. And so Shanna says, what are they talking about? And James says, oh, they must have been stoned or something. That's all I can figure out. That's weird. He said, how awesome, for us to see this. And then so Shanna says, well, James, he said, you said you used to be a hippie back in '69. Why don't you put that headband on so I can see what you look like as a young man, as a hippie? He said, oh, are you sure? I said, yeah. So he said, okay, here goes nothing. So he picks up, and then as he picks up in the air, the film slows down. It slows down, and it's in slow motion. So as James is starting to put the headband on his head, he's barely putting it on his head, and the minute it touched, it was like, ooh, he goes, oh, and he falls to his knees like this, and he goes, and his head's bent like that, and she says, oh, James, what's wrong? So she comes and grabs him on the shoulder to comfort him. James, are you okay? And then she goes, oh, and she gets weakened too. And then all of a sudden, as James' head's bent and she's down there comforting him and everything, then the cameraman films, they focus away from James, and the trees start blowing with a weird, strange wind going like that, and some weird, strange music starts playing. Then all of a sudden the cameraman flashes back to James, his head's still bent over. But now the audience notices that James has long hair. And as the cameraman swings around to James' front, they see that now James has a long black beard and long hair. And now James's face, as he turns, he's young. It's transporting back to 1969, and he's at that Woodstock concert, and now it's made him young again. And so as James gets up, weakly gets up, he's like this, dazed and confused. And he gets like this, and he starts feeling his face. He has a strange look. You know, he notices he has a beard now, and he goes like this. Reaches back, and he notices he has long hair. So as he does, he says, my God, Shanna, that note must have been true. This is a magic headband. My God. She said, yes, James, you're young again. He said, what? And he says, yes. And he says, my God, this is true. He says, well, I vow from this day forward to use whatever powers I've been given, to these superpowers, to become, I feel like I feel so strong on top of this. I'm young, I know, but I feel so strong. I feel like a superhero. Move over, Marvel superheroes. The new magic headband superhero is born. So then he says that, and she says, and so then he says, but I promise and vow from this day forward to use whatever powers I've been given to help all mankind, not for evil, but for good. And then Shanna, then at that very second, music starts playing in the background, and they hear, okay, all you hippies out there, are y'all ready to rock and roll? And they go, ah! And he hears like a thunderous clapping cloud. And he said, Shanna, my God, that sounds like we are back. We must be back in time at Woodstock in '69. let's go over that hill again and see if we're actually at the Woodstock concert. She said, come on, James, let's go. So then they start walking up there, and as the closer and closer they walk up that hill, the closer and closer, when they get to the crest of the hill, they look over and they go, and the music goes, dun, and then, yes, and then they focus in, and then we license the actual film footage, and I've already negotiated a 2-minute licensing to use the 2 minutes of actual film footage from the Warner Brothers, copyrighted Warner Brothers Woodstock film. I've already talked to their licensing department at Woodstock, and I've secured 2 minutes of actual film footage. And so we can use just the prime things to like set the stage for our Magic Headband, the world's newest superhero film and footage there. And so they show the film, and then so Shanna and James are wandering around, and Shanna says, James, do you think we're ever going to be able to get back to our own time period? And he said, I don't know, Shanna. But he said, but you said you do like this type of music now. He said, I'm scared also. He said, but right now let's try to enjoy it for what it is, because any minute now we might be transported back to our own time. Or we may never be able to get back to our own time. I don't know. He said, oh, James, I'm scared. And she said, and he said, I am too. But he said, you stick to me. And she said, I'm going to stick to you like glue. She's holding his arm about breaking it off. She's so scared. So they walk along in the sea of people there at the Woodstock with all the blankets on the hillside and stuff. And so James walks along, and he sees one where an empty blanket, and he says, well, Shanna, he says, for right now, let's just sit here, and we'll go ahead and sit here, and at least, and if the owners of this blanket come back, he said, then we'll get up and find something else. But for right now, he said, let's just go ahead and stay here. So then the scene starts off, and then it's starting to get nighttime, and so then James and Shanna start to fall in love and everything. James and Shanna start to fall in love and everything, and they realize that they're falling in love together. And then, so this is what this is here. Magic Headband, world's new superhero. And this is James and Shanna. A picture of them says, this could be James and Shanna in the Magic Headband. Let's give you a shot of this to show you what they're doing, because it started raining for 2 days and stuff, as you know, at the Woodstock concert. So we're huddled in a blanket like all the people were back then. So from time to time, we show James and Shanna together and show them, actually falling in love, and they're watching from time to time, just show little skits of the different bands that are playing there. Then on the last day of the concert, James and Shanna are going ahead, and it had been raining, like I said, for 2 days. There at the Woodstock concert. It had been raining for 2 days, and so this is showing, of course, how it was. It's showing how it was there. This is the bands playing here and all that, and the sea of people there and all the crowds and stuff to show you. We can use just skits of the different Woodstock from the 2 minutes that we can license from Warner Brothers. The 2 minutes we can license from Warner Brothers here. To show, to get the stage set for our film. So I think you get an idea how awesome this film's going to be. Now, this is Jimi Hendrix, the last day, playing on the last day of the concert here. The last day of the concert, Jimi Hendrix playing to the crowds, and it stopped raining that day. And so so they're there. And so on this day, the last day of the film, James and Shanna, well, they went down they announced there's going to be breakfast given out at the tents there. So as James and Shanna are standing in the line, there's a small talk going on between some hippies and James and Shanna. Hey man, this is cool, isn't it? And James and Shanna, you don't know how cool. But James kept telling Shanna, now Shanna, whatever you do, don't mention to anybody how we got here. They'll think we're crazy, and everything. So and plus, I don't want them knowing that, because if I ever lost this headband that I've been given with superpowers, I'd hate to think what would happen if this headband that's so powerful fell in the hands of the wrong people. So then she said, I understand, James, I understand. And so then they're standing in line. So then all of a sudden, while they're standing in line, James hears a big crack, like that, and he looks over to his right, And one of the big water towers, it's a wooden water tower that had been set up to pump water in there for this massive crowd. The leg starts to break and the tower goes, and it's starting to fall. It's starting to fall over. James says, "Oh my God!" So, but without even thinking, he runs like this with superpower speeds. And James ran like Superman, like a freight train. He was so fast, and Shanna couldn't believe her eyes, and the crowd standing next to him couldn't either. They go, "Ooh," and everything, because he ran so fast, it was like grease lightning over there. And then all of a sudden he got there, and besides running fast to there, he's so powerful that with his two hands, he held up this big wooden leg where it had cracked in two, and held up the whole water tower that was massively heavy until the other people could get there with another big pole to stick under it to brace it. And so he held it all by himself. And so James, thinking to himself, he started realizing slowly the superpowers he's been given to help all mankind. So then the last day starts off, and James sees the Jimi Hendrix is playing the last day, and they wake up to the sound of Jimi Hendrix, because Jimi Hendrix was the last one to play there as the people started leaving the third day, and there was a lot of people and garbage on the ground, things like that, and Jimi Hendrix still playing that last day. And so James told Shanna, "You know what, Shanna?" Says, I feel like going up and trying to get up on stage and telling Jimi Hendrix not to take that last overdose, that he's going to be overdosed in September and die of an overdose drug." He said, and she said, "Yeah, but James, they wouldn't believe you if you told him." He said, "How do you know?" He said, "It's just that we're from the future, and that's how we know these things." You know, he said, "Yes, there's so many people I could help. Do you know this year, 1970, next year, Jimi Hendrix is going to die, Janis Joplin, and both of them from overdoses, and then so many more, like and everything, and everything. So many more great artists are going to die." He said, "I wish there's a way to help them. I could tell them." He said, "But I guess I just got to let things happen." He said, and so then anyway, then at the last there, she said, "Okay, James," said, "after all this mud for 2 days and rain," said, "we know this is the last day of the concert. James, do you think we're going to be able to get back to our own time period? Or are we going to be stuck here for all of eternity until we grow old in this time period?" And James said, he said, "To be honest with you, I don't know." He says, "It may last just a few more minutes, or we may never be able to get home. But," he said, "for some reason, I feel like it'll work out." She said, "James, I feel like it is too. I feel like we're meant to be, both of us." And she said, "I know that you're young now, and that you were older, and that I'm a young person." She said, "But for some reason, I think if we can get back to our own time period, that we're still going to be able to be there together, because I feel like we're soulmates." He said, "I feel the same way," and because they were loving each other at that point. So then Shanna and James said, "Okay, let's make our way to the river behind the stage, and to wash ourselves off and try to figure out a way of getting back to our own time period." So she said, "Okay, that sounds good." So they go, and they're walking there. So they get back to the river there behind the stage. Shanna's starting to walk into the river to wash herself and stuff. She takes another step, and all of a sudden she goes, "Ow!" And she had cut her leg on a horrible beer bottle that was split in two. And it cut her main artery in her ankle. And it was sitting there just spewing blood everywhere. And James said, "Oh my God, Shanna, that's your main artery in your ankle." Said, "We got to get this blood flow stopped, or else you're going to die. And we're so far out in the country from a hospital. We've got to save you. Oh my God, come here and let me see what we can do." So then she was crying, and he didn't know what to do. So in a minute of panic, and not knowing what to do, and just out of panic, James all of a sudden pulls off his magic headband and starts wrapping it around the leg of Shanna to stop the blood flow. The minute he pulls off that magic headband, starts to tie it on her, he goes, "Oh, oh," and he starts feeling that weak feeling. He knew what that meant. He goes, "Oh," and then Shanna looks over at him, and he's starting to fade away. He's fading away and getting fainter and fainter, fading away. He says, "Oh no, James, don't leave me. Oh my God, oh God, no, don't take him away from me." And he's going, "Shanna," as he's fading away. And then all of a sudden, the next scene and the next stage goes boom, and James is back at the exact spot and place in that field, open, empty field, where near their rental car, where they first started off when James first put on the headband. James doesn't. He's looking around and there's no Shanna anywhere. So he's next to tears. He's just besides himself. He's next to tears because they had both fallen in love, and he was so worried about her. Would she ever be? What would happen to her? And so he's almost to tears. And all of a sudden he's saying, God, please bring her back to me. And all of a sudden he hears, James, James, I'm here, James, don't cry, I'm here, I'm okay. And so he looks around, Shanna. And so they embrace and they hug each other. And he says, what happened? And Shanna says, well, at the last minute, she said, I started to pass out from all the blood flow loss. And at the last second, she said, I came to my senses and thought, what do I have to lose? So she strapped on the magic headband, and it took her right back to where James is with him in that open field right then and there. And so he said, Shanna, thank God you're here. And she said, yes, and I don't even have the cut on my leg. I'm fine now because it healed it because we're back in the future. So they said, now we can be together and get married. So then they hugged each other and said yes. So he said they started to leave. They started to leave, and as they're leaving, he says, I may be able to use this headband. I'm going to take it with us home. I may be able to use this, take time travels back in time to save all the rock concert stars that may have died before. He said, give it to me for a minute. So he puts it on. He grabs up Shanna, and he jumps and leaps over the fence and to the rental car. He says, Shanna, the keys to the car in your left pocket. She said, how do you know that? He said, I guess I got x-ray vision. So it ends there, and then as they're driving off, James says, he's naming off all the superstars he may be able to help. And then he says, and it says on the screen as it fades away, it says, the end of the movie, it says, they may be able to, it says, this will be made into a TV series after that. Thanks for watching. My name is Harold Hodges of HH Records Music Company and Entertainment Pictures LA. Thanks for watching.